another great interview on TYT Interviews. Kai Newkirk, founder of 99 Rise, just did March for Democracy in California, and a general ass kicker. And you can tell by the fist on his shirt, you see? We had one like that for the Young Turks too in one of our campaigns, so I like it. But most importantly, I like the ideas. So for now, Kai, welcome.
Great to be here. Thanks, man.
And for people at home who don't know 99 Rise, educate, preach it.
We're like the nonviolent direct action wing of the Get Money Out of Politics movement. We are fighting, like many others, for a progressive future in our country. And we don't think we can get there unless we win reform that really abolishes the relationship between economic wealth and political power. And we don't think we can win that without building a mass movement of nonviolent civil resistance. People doing things like risking arrest and going to jail, doing long marches, fasting, making the status quo unsustainable until we win change. And so that's the vision that we have in 99 Rise. And
love it. I love it. Well, you know, I want to get money out of, I think I want to get money out of politics a little bit. Today, as we record this interview today, I had done a story on Andrew Cuomo and how he did this whole commission to get corruption and money out of politics, and then he corrupted the commission.
True.
Because, and this is why we need things like 99 Rise, because those politicians, they got in power through this system. Like, people keep waiting for a hero coming out of politics, but every one of them made it through this system. I think you'll get some real exceptions, like Elizabeth Warren doing a lot of small donations, the Alan Graces of the world, but the Obamas, the Hillary Clintons of the world, are you crazy? They love this system. This is the system that made them. So we need something to rise up from, because for us here, down here, it doesn't work for us. You know, for all the people that it's supposed to be serving, it doesn't serve us.
Absolutely.
So what motivated you enough to start a whole organization about it?
Well, I think the seeds of my social movement work were planted by my parents' values. My dad was an environmentalist. My mom had a very inclusive understanding of family and community. And through the challenges of my family life growing up, my educational experience exposed me a lot to a whole range of conditions, from the poverty of working families in rural West Virginia to the kids of Wall Street bankers and elite lawyers at a boarding school I got a scholarship to go to for 2 years. And as I was coming of age as an adult, I think I was increasingly drawn to activism and organizing, especially nonviolent movements, as a way to respond to the question of, like, what's my responsibility as an adult in the face of so much injustice in the world? And for most of the last 15 years, I've been working as a community organizer in different progressive movements, from the union movement to immigrant rights, universal health care, the global justice movement, anti-war, progressive democratic politics. And a couple things have become very clear to me in that time. One is that I think to really make progress in our country, we have to revive this tradition of nonviolent civil resistance that was so important in the civil rights movement and other struggles in our country. And two, we have to address this question of democracy, and in particular the corruption of it, from the domination of big money interests and how we fund our elections, or we're not going to be able to move forward on all these fronts that I fought so hard in and so many others have. So a few years ago, I was working for a city councilman in Los Angeles doing good work, and then the Occupy movement blew up. And I felt challenged to confront the depth of the crisis that we're in as a country, which I understood, of course, intellectually. I've been organizing for a long time, but I wasn't really prioritizing that, I felt, in my life in a deep way. And I was challenged to remember that this is what I believe is going to make the change, is a mass nonviolent movement. Here it's happening. What am I doing? And I got involved and came to feel that we needed an organization that could take some of that potential and identify something we could win, right, that would make it possible for all the grievances of the 99% to be resolved. And I think that is addressing corruption, getting free and fair elections.
So as you were explaining, you know, your upbringing and the environmentalist stuff, so obviously you grew up in Berkeley or Massachusetts, right?
Not exactly. West Virginia, small town in West Virginia.
West Virginia, okay. So, God bless.
Indeed, indeed. We have a proud history. I grew up just down the river from Harper's Ferry, which it wasn't a nonviolent action, but John Brown's raid there certainly precipitated the Civil War. So there was a consciousness, I think, of that history. You know?
Yeah, that's right. And so, and as you were explaining how you were a community organizer and all the different things you did, I thought you're what Obama was supposed to be.
Well, I don't know about that, but
Right. Well, and then he morphed into this, whatever this is. Remember when he said he was going to put his walking boots on if collective bargaining was ever
Yeah.
challenged? Anybody ever find Obama's walking boots?
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody's still looking around for him. Where were they when Wisconsin was going down? But I think the thing is that we have to stop looking at how Obama failed us and not being the community organizer that he inspired us, that he had the potential to be. Community organizer in the White House, how awesome would that be? But I think we failed ourselves, and we push each other constantly in 99 Rise to stop looking at what our leaders are not doing that they should be, and look at what are we not doing. And I hold myself at fault, as I think many other progressive leaders do, that we deferred too much to Obama's initiative when he was elected. And we've learned that lesson. Let's not need to learn it again. You know, it's the change is going to come. It's going to be driven by a movement. We have to be about building that, and our leaders will follow.
Yeah, the time to defer to politicians has come to an end.
Absolutely. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for that.
And yeah, look, I ideologically went through a lot of the same epiphanies and realizations that you did. I come at it from a totally different perspective from media, but as I was covering every story, I was like, well, it all goes back to money in politics. So you want to be an environmentalist? Sad day for you, because ExxonMobil's got a hell of a lot more money than you do, and they're going to win on that issue, and they're going to keep on winning. That's why they get a minimum of $14 billion in subsidies, the oil companies do, every year. So much more than renewable energy, alternative forms of energy, even though they're the most profitable companies in the world. Like, people look at them and they go, how could that happen? Every time, you, as a layman, if you're sitting out there and you saw a story and you think, how could that happen? The answer is always money. Okay.
No doubt.
Yeah, and so if you're a community organizer or you care about this stuff and you cover it as we do here on the Young Turks, we got to solve it. Otherwise, there's no hope, right? And we got to attack it from, as Larry Lessig says, you're going to hit that tree from a lot of different angles, and so that we can strike at the root of the problem. And so, so when you went to start 99 Rise, I'm curious, how do you go about it, right? Like, how do you start a group?
I don't know, some way other than we did. You know, it's tough. You know, we started with nothing and just a small group of people and a vision. And it's been a lot of work to really build that over the last couple of years. And we had a breakthrough, I think, this year with the action that we did at the Supreme Court. But a lot of planning and preparation was the foundation to really look at how have movements succeeded in the past in our country and around the world, and what are the lessons we can derive from that. That would matter to people whose hopes were raised so much by Occupy and who continue to be organizing and involved. You know, we've built from there, and it's been a tough road, but I believe so much in the fundamental vision that I've never been deterred by the challenges of it, because I think what you say is right. We especially have to feel, you know, Martin Luther King Jr. talked about the fierce urgency of now. I don't know if there's ever been a time in human history where that was more true than it is now, especially on climate change, you know. For my generation, like, you know, if I want to have a family, you know, they're not going to, if I have kids, they're not going to grow up in a planet anything like my parents did if we don't do something about this. And our analysis in 99 Rise, and I think many others, is that we're not going to be able to win change on that front, much less all the other urgent fights that we face, unless we can first break the grip that corporations and billionaires have on our democracy. Because the fossil fuel companies are not just going to part with trillions of dollars so we can, you know, have a habitable planet for future generations. That's not their calculus. It needs to be our calculus. We need a government that's going to serve us. And I feel like, you know, whatever it takes to do that, we have to do it.
So one of the reasons that in the amendment we're striving for, we end corporate personhood entirely, is because corporations are the faucet. You know, they are going to pour that money into politics because they are designed to. It gives you a great return on investment. We did the story, 2004 repatriation tax holiday that they did, that Congress passed. I think it had a 24,000% return on investment for the amount of money they spent lobbying to get that law passed. So any logical corporation, which in combination they have trillions of dollars, will spend billions of dollars buying our government. It's the best investment they can make. And so when people say to me, oh, no, well, corporate personhood, I mean, ending it altogether, that's got ramifications. You betcha.
That's right.
That's right, because it doesn't mean corporations don't have any rights. We have a media corporation here. Corporations need to exist, we understand it, et cetera. But they don't have God-given rights. They don't have natural rights. They don't have constitutional rights. That's insanity. We're their creators. We created
right.
them, right? And we've got to take control of those robots again. We created them, we unleashed them in the world, and we programmed into their code the only thing to do is to make more money. It doesn't matter if you destroy the planet, it doesn't matter if you're unethical, it doesn't matter, not that they're immoral, they're amoral. They don't give a damn about morality. So if we don't rein in those machines, we're in for a world of trouble. So we got to do it through Wolfpack, we got to do it through 99 Rise, and so people ask me all the time, oh, do you work with the Mayday Pack, Larry Lessig's, there's all these other great groups, Represent Us, Move to Amend, etc. But there's no two groups that could work together better than Wolfpack and 99 Rise.
Well, I think we've done a good job so far.
Yeah, no, and we have. You know, that's why I love your group. I love the March for Democracy, which I want to talk about next. Because we have a strategy to get the amendment, right? And it's to go state by state, it's to get conventions. But boy, you know, nonviolent resistance could be an enormous part of that, right? So it's not something like, hey, you're kind of attacking it from a different angle, and if that works, then you don't need us, great, which that would be terrific if someone else solved the problem. I'd be like, hallelujah, bless your heart, let me go on to other things, right? But I think we can work in unison, so that's why I think that your group is so stellar. And the heroes of my life, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, so we totally agree. And your Supreme Court action. If you guys don't know, Kai got up and did a protest at the Supreme Court, literally unprecedented, right? And spoke out against in the McCutcheon case about money in politics, and taped it. And then, so there's tape on YouTube, and we covered it on the Young Turks as well.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. So curious about that. What was it? So of course the reaction of old school is, oh, you know, ruffian, radical, you know, disaster. How could this man do this to the esteemed Supreme Court?
That's right.
But the Supreme Court's popularity is at an all-time low, historic low in American history. So what drove you to do it, and then what was the reaction you got afterwards?
Yeah, well, first of all, you know, what you said is, I think, really important to talk about how we have to have a complementary approach to how we build the movement, you know. Lessig says we have to learn to walk and chew gum and tweet at the same time, which, by the way, I became really good at on the march. But, you know, I think that's the right approach to understanding how we can work together. And the lane that we're in of nonviolent direct action is a critical one. It's not the only one, you know, and we need to build that sense of a pluralistic appreciation of what everybody's doing. But I think the Supreme Court action was a great example of the potential of this kind of thing, right? Because what we saw was McCutcheon's coming down the pike, this decision that's going to take a wrecking ball to one of the last vestiges of separation between wealth and state. And it's very, very likely that they're going to decide to remove this cap on total contributions that billionaires and millionaires can give. So this is going to be like Citizens United 2.0. This can be a moment that kind of demoralizes people, you know? Or it can be a moment that outrages people, you know. And we wanted to make sure that all the vast majority, as I said when I stood up in the Supreme Court, of Americans who disagree with Citizens United, who disagree with these absurd propositions, right, that money is speech and that corporations are people and that somehow the wealthy should have the right to buy our government, that I wanted to give those folks voice, right, to speak literally truth to power. And to show them that somebody was going to stand up and say something, right, in the heart of ground zero of a lot of this corruption, you know. And it wasn't easy, you know. I was afraid right up until the moment that I did it, you know. And I was so relieved when it was over. But I'm so glad and grateful that I did it, and grateful for the support of the people in 99 Rise who helped me to do it, because the response was tremendous. You know, I was in jail overnight, but when I got out, a friend of mine who was there supporting me gave me my phone. She said, I can't wait to show you everything, you know. They had it blown up on social media. And once the video came out, which was literally historically unprecedented, first video ever from inside the Supreme Court, first protest in 6 or 8 years, which to me is kind of mind-boggling. But nonetheless, I mean, it was just sitting there for somebody to do and call great attention to their issue. So I'm glad that we were able to do it, because I think hundreds of thousands of people, you know, saw something or heard something about this crisis of corruption and the fact that people are doing something about it who wouldn't have otherwise. So, and that momentum, that response of people, everybody who reached out over social media or went to 99rise.org and was like, hey, we stand with you, we want to get involved. Like, I agreed with you, but I wasn't doing anything, now I want to do something. That is exactly the response that I believe can be created by these kinds of actions. So it was incredibly heartening.
Oh, that's terrific. And so it helped grow the group as well?
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah,
terrific.
that really gave us the confidence that we could pull off something as big as the California March for Democracy, was that this huge new burst of support that we had, and said, we got to show people, yes, this is what one person did on video, we got to show them what it looks like when a group of people, a community of people step up and start to take this kind of bold, nonviolent action.
Totally. When you mentioned money not being speech, Jamie Raskin had a great point about that as a state legislator in Maryland. He said, if money is speech, well, then if someone goes to a prostitute and gives them money for sex, it's okay, they're just talking to her. So how could that be illegal?
Fair enough. Yeah, there's all kinds of contradictions you can poke in that, you know.
Right. So now let's talk about March for Democracy. You guys walked from where? Los Angeles all the way to Sacramento.
That's right.
For those who are not familiar with California geography, that is a significant walk.
It is indeed.
And I'm sure President Obama joined you, right? Because he found his walking boots and
we were looking around for him out in the grape vineyards, but never turned up.
Oh, he didn't, huh? That's interesting. I know a couple of Young Turks showed up.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was awesome.
Lucas Lilliehome, James Gannon were there. James Gannon shot this footage.
They were amazing.
Yeah, James and Lucas used to work with us at Current, and Lucas even before that. So what was March for Democracy for?
Well, we saw it as a next step after not just the Supreme Court action, but the decision in McCutcheon. Once they came down with that decision, we felt like there needs to be some kind of a bold response that can give people a sense that we can turn the tides. You know, and we felt like we have the most strength here in California. Let's do something here. It's the biggest state in the union. If we could win some kind of change here, it'll inspire people, right? And so we looked at, you know, the tradition of nonviolent movements again, and saw that so many times in the past, you know, long marches have been so powerful, whether it was Gandhi's Salt March or the Selma to Montgomery March in the Civil Rights Movement, or here in California, Cesar Chavez and the Farm Worker Pilgrimage in 1966. We wanted to build on that tradition and do something that would have that kind of power. So we said, let's march from Los Angeles all the way to our state capital in Sacramento, almost 500 miles, and to bring a really simple demand to the leaders of our state, that they publicly acknowledge the crisis of corruption and that they take immediate action to do it. And we knew that there were a few different measures that were on the table that the legislature could take action on now that were pending, and we thought if we could help push those across the finish line and do so in a way that inspired people by the sacrifice that we made, by the courage and commitment, that it could really help to build the movement. And we were just tremendously inspired by the response to that as well.
So how many people showed up?
Well, it was funny when we committed to do it, when we sort of pulled the trigger, you could say, I said, we're going to do this even if I'm the only person who walks the whole thing, and there's at least 3 people every day, because we said that's the Granny D standard, the 88-year-old woman who marched from Los Angeles to DC. So that's the standard. Let's see what we can do. And I was really encouraged when we started out. We had 12 people that were committed to do the whole thing. Many people marched that first day when we started out at City Hall. But over the course of time, hundreds of people walked with us for a day or a weekend or a week. And people joined in the small towns and the cities along the way. People opened up their homes to us. They fed us. They welcomed us. It was a really beautiful experience of community and seeing how people were inspired by people sacrificing for something that they believe in, right? And when we arrived in Sacramento, there were hundreds of us. Dolores Huerta was walking with us, who co-founded the United Farm Workers with Cesar Chavez. Larry Lessig walked with us on his birthday, no less. Other leaders walked with us. And when we came into Sacramento, there was such a feeling of strength and hope. All these people that we met along the way and said, hey, be with us in Sacramento, they showed up. And we came in 100 strong, we rallied. And unfortunately, the doors to the People's House were shut to us when we arrived there. They closed the building early, but we weren't going to be deterred by that. We stayed there 24/7, maintained a presence, maintained a vigil. Every day we were in the Capitol, visiting legislators, rallying in the Rotunda, which ironically is called the Temple of Democracy, and holding this insistent nonviolent presence as a movement of love, but one that's very firm and very committed and very determined that we're not going to leave until some action is taken. And over the course of those 12 days, 2 of the bills that we were pushing were passed all the way out of the legislature. Another was advanced, and many of the legislators came down and voiced solidarity with us, took up the symbol of the movement we came up with, one person, one vote. And a lot of new people joined the movement there in Sacramento and came from other places to join us, and were inspired around the country, watching every day, seeing what was going to happen. So when we declared victory and ended the occupation after those 12 days, 47 arrests had happened, small numbers of people each day. You know, I was just so proud of the sacrifice that so many people stepped up and made to get us to that point.
How many times have you been arrested so far?
I think I'm at 9 total now.
That's pretty
it was
good.
two in Sacramento, which is a small number in the grand scheme of things in this tradition of nonviolent resistance.
And how many were for crack?
Well, you know, I won't comment on that, on my youth. No, everyone, I think when I was 17, I got taken in for chalking the high school. It was like a senior, graduation
thing,
prank
or you were just making fun of?
I wish I could say it was. I wish I could say it was. But
so you were making fun of Bob?
Yeah,
down
I don't
the street
think they just booked us, and my mom came and picked me up. But every other one has been a political action.
Okay, good. So, and people don't know that it's actually. I almost don't want to say this because I don't want to discourage people from the next walk, but it's not easy. I did an 18-mile walk in New Hampshire with Larry Lessig.
Yeah.
And I was like, they do this every day?
Yeah.
Man, by the end, I'm like, what? I could barely keep it together. You must have worked out your thighs.
I don't know. It's strange. I don't feel all that much stronger. I know I must be. But, I walked with Lessig in New Hampshire, too, for 5 days. And that was one of the things that, we talked about the vision of it, but I was like, here, I'm doing it. I see how this works. We can pull this off. And I asked him, hey, will you come out there? I said, if I got him in the bag, maybe we can do this. Unfortunately, we weren't there on the same day, and it never worked out schedule-wise for you to join us on the march. But hopefully next time. I was thinking about how do I describe it. I think it was a beautiful ordeal. It is physically challenging. Myself and one other walker did every mile, but many, many others were there for the full time. And, blisters, aches and pains, the heat. One person passed out after a 110-degree day in the Central Valley. But there's also something really fulfilling and fun and beautiful about it. The sense of community with everybody that you're there with, the sense that every step that you're taking, Dolores Huerta calls it praying with your feet. It's just like what you believe in, what you're really all about, you're making that real with every step. And then seeing the response of people, so, any kind of work, any kind of movement work involves sacrifice, but there's a feeling of liberation, right? Of that you're doing what you really believe in. Right. And with walking, it's an age-old kind of spiritual tradition. It goes back that far, pilgrimages and stuff like that. So when you're walking for something you really believe in with other people, it's a really fulfilling experience.
And it gives you a sense of accomplishment every day, right? Hey, we got this done, and we're literally on the road to the answer, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what were the 2 pieces of legislation you guys wanted passed?
Sure. So there were 3 that we were calling for. AJR 1, which is the one that Wolfpack took the lead on, that calls for the Article 5 convention. And that passed the day after we arrived. We showed up with all these numbers. People were stressed. We were in the gallery that day. And that was just hugely fulfilling and exciting for everybody to see, hey, we got here and already something has happened. And tons of work went in to do that. Wolfpack did the majority of it. We were there to help push it across the finish line and to make sure that victory was something that inspired people by the way in which we won it and created an opportunity to really pull people in through media and social media to see, wow, something's happening in California. So that was, in a lot of ways for us, we were most excited about doing something that was going to have these national implications. Winning that was huge. And then within the first week, SB 1272, which is the Overturned Citizens United Act, and basically would put a measure on the November ballot allowing Californians to vote on whether Congress should propose that 28th Amendment and our legislature should ratify it, passed the Assembly and the Senate while we were there. And after we left, the governor allowed it to become law. It's now going to be Prop 49 in California. Allowed it to become law without his signature. We had gotten a meeting with his senior staff. He wasn't in town. We really wanted him to come and meet with us, but he wasn't around. But we felt pretty confident.
So those were the 2 that got done.
Yeah, those,
right.
And
then what's the 3rd one?
Yeah, the 3rd one is the California Disclose Act, which the California Clean Money Campaign has been pushing. Money Out Voters and Coalition was the one that was really driving SB 1272. California Clean Money Campaign was behind the Disclose Act, which would require that the top 3 funders to any political ad be prominently revealed, displayed within the ads themselves, because as you know, there's so much dark money, anonymous money, Californians for a Better California, funding some ad about why we should eat more GMOs, when you know that it's really Monsanto that's driving it. So it's going to create that basic level of accountability. And it's amazing to see that even the reform that modest is having such a hard time. Unfortunately, a lot of our would-be allies, should-be allies in the union movement are ambivalent about it, because they're concerned about that same level of transparency, but they need to see that they're never going to win the arms race with corporations.
That's 100% right. Yeah.
You know, if it's about people, then getting money off the table is going to help working people.
Yeah, I always find it amazing when they say, no, you shouldn't know who's funding our political campaigns that wind up having an enormous influence.
Yeah, it's a hard position to defend. It's absurd.
Mitch McConnell says it would allow us to intimidate their donors. Well, your donors bought our government. I'd like to know who bought the government.
Yeah.
But that's why we push for an amendment. Because if you can't even get the Disclose Act passed, whether it's in California or it's nationwide, and we've actually been losing ground nationwide. It was 59 senators first time around. Mitch McConnell led the filibuster that killed it. Last time they voted on it was 53 senators. We lost 6 senators, right? It's just this Congress is way too corrupt, right? It's got to be an amendment that goes above their head and around them. And then, so if you call for a convention at the state level, you don't need Congress at all. So, you know, yours is one person, one vote, which I love. Ours is Article 5 convention. So,
okay.
So
right on.
I say to everybody, I'll see you at the convention.
Okay, cool. I hadn't seen that yet somehow. That's cool too. We can flash them both.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Knowing Fox News, they're like, what are those, gang signs? What are they?
Well, you know, it was a beautiful moment when SB 1272 passed the Senate, which was the last day that we were there. We thought it was a good chance that it was going to pass, but we wanted to be in the gallery anyway, and so we're up there holding up the one person, one vote symbol. And Ted Lieu, the state senator who was pushing that, who was running for Congress, and had come down and spoken with us and said, hey, you guys are doing the right thing, I'm with you. He stood up on the floor of the Senate, and he raised up his finger, and he turned around and he looked at everybody in the gallery. And it was this beautiful moment. I did not expect that. And it was kind of like on a very, very, very tiny, minuscule scale, you know, in the civil rights movement, there was this beautiful moment when LBJ said, we shall overcome, in his speech advocating the Civil Rights Act, and Martin Luther King cried, and everybody who was watching it. And, you know, I don't just, you know, I'm not making this crazy comparison, but I was saying it was beautiful to see how a leader was affiliating and kind of joining with the movement, that when the people lead and we do so with the bold vision, a true vision, and we make sacrifices, we have the courage and commitment, and we reach out with love, our leaders will follow. And that was beautiful to see that.
Yeah, and it's not relying on the politicians, it's seeing the effect that you have on people that are supposed to be your representatives. That's what's interesting. So Ryan Clayton, who's the head of Wolfpack, the executive director of Wolfpack, every message, free and fair elections, free and fair elections. And all of a sudden in the United States Senate, senators started talking about free and fair elections. And I was like, well, isn't that interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I remember at the state level, we once got a politician to do something he definitely did not want to do, and we knew he didn't want to do it, and we got him to do it. I was like, oh, that feels good.
Yeah,
so
that was a beautiful, those kind of moments that show us our power are what we need, you know, to sustain the hope that it's going to take. And
so that's where I was going to go with that. I mean, you have a march, and I've been part of a lot of marches, right? And you have an occupation, and I've been part of some of those. And it actually worked. Was that amazing?
Yeah.
Like, you guys got 2 bills passed. It's almost unprecedented. You do a lot of unprecedented things. I'm noticing that about you.
Well, if we win this change as a movement as a whole, it's going to be something that, if not unprecedented, is at least historic. You know, so we got to shoot for crazy. We got to shoot for the moon.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only way we're going to get there.
Okay, so the documentary about your life is Kai Newkirk, unprecedented. That's not bad. But the people who marched with you and occupied with you must have been ecstatic that they actually got change.
Oh, there was so much joy and pride. I mean, it was so beautiful to see. Some people had never really done any kind of organizing at all. Young brother Henry Hong, who was inspired by watching the Young Turks and then saw what we were planning to do, never really done any organizing. He joined the whole march, you know, and he risked arrest for the first time, went to jail up there. And it was so beautiful to see the sense of people feeling their power and seeing what they can do. And that's how this movement is going to grow. And I think, you know, we have to remember that the take that I what I take from history is that no matter how corrupt a system is, a balk Congress, a dictatorship, whatever, we as the people ultimately have the power, because the system only persists because of our consent and cooperation in many different ways, not just voting, but what we do at work, what we talk to people about, what we spend our money on, whether we obey the laws or not. And if we're willing to do what it takes and make the sacrifices necessary and stand together, we can bring any status quo down and create the space for any change. And that's what we're going to have to do in this movement.
I got a new idea. As soon as we're done amending the U.S. Constitution, getting our democracy back, we should go over to Gaza.
Yeah, something needs to be done.
Right.
Something needs to be done.
Because nonviolent movement there could be enormously helpful as well. But okay, last thing, and where should people go for the website, by the way?
99rise.org. Sign up, be part of this nonviolent movement.
Okay, 99rise.org. So what's next for the movement?
Well, we want to do something big, something crazy in the fall that hopefully can elevate this issue of money in politics, corruption within the narrative of the overall 2014 election, because we need to make it part of the story that's driving what candidates are doing and responding to. We haven't decided yet what that's going to be, because right now we're focused on making sure that everyone who got inspired by the march or by the Supreme Court action in California or around the country has the opportunity to really step up and be empowered to be leaders and to form teams within this movement, because our model is to build a relatively decentralized organization that really gives people as much upfront in terms of the skills, the practices, the understanding to be able to be leaders in this nonviolent army of democracy defenders, to really do their actions, do their campaigns, and really drive this thing around the country until we blow it up and create like an Occupy 2.0 movement with a clear strategy, a clear vision, and ability to escalate until we win. So we're doing trainings in Sacramento and San Diego here in California for people around the state that are forming new teams. And we're going to create an online training for all the people around the country who've reached out and want to sign up, because we want to empower people to do these kind of actions and campaigns all across the country. And we want to make sure that we have the strongest base and foundation possible before we launch the next big fight, which hopefully will be unprecedented in its own way.
Yeah, no, I love the idea. Okay, so given your track record, I'm waiting for first ever video from Venus, or you guys march in Minnesota and get 7 pieces of legislation passed.
Well, I'd settle with getting Cenk Uygur to go to jail with us for the first time.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So you got some chalk on you? Maybe with
No, for a good reason. For a good reason.
All right, well, we can work on that.
Let's do it. I've been working on Lessig for a while. Yeah, I hope you see this, Larry. Yeah, we got to do this together. But I think there's well over 1 million people across the country, if you look at all the different organizations working on this, that are very committed to this cause, right? You take Move to Amend, you take Represent Us, you take Root Strikers, take Wolfpack, you just add them all up. There's over 1 million people, I think. If you gave me 1% of that, 10,000 people, right? We could occupy the state capital of every state in the country with a couple hundred people, and throw in a little bit more, we could do the Congress at the same time. What would that mean? Like, how much would that drive this conversation onto people's kitchen tables or on the top of their Facebook feed? And really, everybody agrees with us, but they're not doing anything. We got to give them hope. We got to create a sense of crisis around that. And nothing does that more than people stepping up and doing something that people say, wait a second, that's kind of crazy, but it's morally right. It's just. What does that mean for me? What can I do?
So I got turned on thinking about that. So the idea of 10,000 people marching, and we march from one state to another. I mean, Congress, I feel like I want to treat them as the irrelevancy that they are, right?
Even if we're not expecting action to happen there, like the Supreme Court. I didn't expect the Supreme Court to do something different based on what I was going to do or not. I thought that day maybe they would announce the decision, but the decision didn't come down that morning, said, let's do it anyway, because we got it here. We got to do it now, right? I'm too afraid to come back. But it wasn't because we thought they was going to change what they were going to do. We wanted to dramatize the injustice of it. So we got to, people hate Congress and the dysfunction there, right? What are they polling like worse than King George in the time of the Revolution?
Oh, much
worse. We got to
worse.
dramatize that in a way that moves people from resignation and apathy and sort of dismay to righteous anger and love and saying, you know what, we got to do something. So we got to remember, even if they're not going to be the ones that move forward, challenging them can help people can create the movement that's ultimately going to push the change.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and you're right. It's 7% congressional approval, and King George was around 33%.
Wow.
Okay, Congress right now is at 7%.
I'm giving them too much credit.
Gallup poll said it was the lowest approval rating for any institution ever in America. So that's an amazing stat.
something.
And they're supposed to be our representatives.
Yeah.
The second idea that I really loved is the idea of an army of 300 in every state capital, right? So there's a lot of wonderful things ahead. You know, we just got to work together and work hard and get in there, roll up our sleeves, and even if our politicians can't find them from time to time, find our walking boots and get out there and march as Kai
They don't have
and
to
99
find them,
Rights
we'll
did.
find it.
Yeah, that's right. You keep your walking boots in your closet. We got plenty over here. Kai, great
Thank you,
job,
brother.
man. Thank you for
Thank you so
joining
much.
us. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you.